The Messerschmitt Bf109 was one of the most respected and maybe the most well-known German fighter plane of World War II, used from the beginning of the war until the very end, and license-built variants even flew until the 1960s. With more than 34,000 units built, it was the backbone of the German fighter force in the war. During its service life, it had many different models and modifications. So in this video, we will talk about its different variants, their features, and how to identify them. So without further ado, let's begin with the very first A variant. These models used the U-210B engines, developing 640 horsepower, and initially they were planned to carry only two 7.92mm machine guns in the engine cowlings. However, after the introduction of the new British Hurricane and Spitfire fighters, which both carried 8 machine guns, it was realized the new fighter needs heavier armament. But because the Bf109 had very thin wings and the redesign would have taken too much time, it was decided that a center-mounted so-called motor cannon will be used, either a machine gun or a cannon firing through the center of the engine. These models were not mass-produced, only 22 were built, and all of them looked a bit different, as they used many experimental features. But soon the next Bf109B variant arrived in 1937. This variant was upgraded to the 670 horsepower U-210D engines. The experiences showed that the center-mounted machine guns were prone to jam because of the vibrations on the engine, so wing-mounted armament was tested on the V8 model. The results confirmed that the wings indeed need a redesign, as they were not strong enough to carry armament. 331 were built from the B1 and B2 versions, and many of them participated in the Spanish Civil War. Early B models used a free-wire radio antenna, which was later modified to a single one, and the late models also featured small cooling slots on the nose. The A and B variants are very similar visually, and hard to distinguish them, especially with the many experimental modifications on different models. In 1938, the following C version was introduced, using the new 700 horsepower U-210G engine. This model was the first to feature the redesigned stronger wings, with two wing-mounted 7.92mm machine guns, while keeping the two nose-mounted ones as well, bringing the total to 4. This model had a very short production run, and only 58 aircraft were built. Some of them were used to experiment with different armament configurations. The C2 model featured an engine-mounted machine gun. The C3 variant was planned with 20mm cannons in the wings instead of the machine guns, and the C4 variant was meant to feature the center-mounted cannon again. The following D variant initially was planned to use the Daimler DB600 power plants, but these engines were not available in large quantities, so almost all of them were used for the Heinkel HE-111 bombers. So the D models were built with the U-210D engines instead, and this variant was in service when World War II broke out. The D1 models carried similar armaments to the C variant, with 4 machine guns. The D2 again was an experiment with the engine-mounted machine gun, while the D3 replaced the machine guns in the wings with two 20mm cannons. 647 D variants were built in total. The A, B, C, and D models can all be identified by the large chin radiators. The C and D variants featured the wing-mounted armament, and starting with the C model, new easily recognizable exhaust manifolds were introduced, while the A and B models usually just had simple openings on the sides. The next E variant of the type received a big redesign. These variants finally received the much stronger Daimler DB601 engines, which delivered about 300 more horsepower than the U-Mo ones. But the stronger engines also required extra cooling, so the chin radiator was gone. Instead, bigger radiators were installed, and they were moved under the wings. The variant featured many different armament variations, starting with 4 7.92mm machine guns, or 2 20mm cannons in the wings and 2 machine guns in the nose, or on the E2 variant, 2 cannons in the wings, 2 machine guns in the nose, plus an additional 20mm cannon firing through the engine. The E model can be identified by the square air intake on the left side, the radiators under the wings, and from the E4 models, the less framing on the canopy. A total of 3,477 E variants were built. They were followed by the F model, which was a big redesign again. They featured the new DB601E engines, now producing 1,350 horsepower. They also had a redesigned airframe with many aerodynamic improvements. These included new smoother engine cowlings with a round air intake, a new propeller spinner, new wings with rounded tips, and finally a retractable tailwheel. On the F models, the wing-mounted cannons were deleted, and the single center-mounted cannon returned, with 2 machine guns in the nose. These models are easily recognizable by the new rounded wing tips, the longer, more streamlined nose with the big propeller spinner, the round air intake, and the new exhaust design, protecting the air intake from the exhaust flames. These models had a production run of 3,449 units. The following G variant entered service in 1942, and it was the last to be mass-produced. This variant had a very similar airframe to the F model, but it featured the more powerful DB605 engine, developing 1,475 horsepower. In 1943, the 7.92mm machine guns in the nose were upgraded to the more powerful 13mm ones. Due to these bigger guns, the later variants, starting with the G5 model, feature very distinctive bulges on the engine cowlings. The most prominent visual differences from the F models, though they are not easy to spot, are 2 small inlet scoops added to each side of the engine cowlings to cool the spark plugs, and the big bulges for the machine guns on later models. While the G10 and G14 variants can be easily identified with the new canopy design. The G variant was the most numerous of the Bf109s, with more than 28,000 produced. The H variant was a limited production run to create a high-altitude variant. On these models, the wingspan of the aircraft was increased by more than 6 feet. They were planned to be built in large quantities, but eventually they did not enter mass production. The final K variant was developed in 1943, when Messerschmitt was instructed to simplify the production of the Bf109 and create a standardized version. This series was introduced in 1944, but only the K4 model was used operationally. The armament usually consisted of 2 13mm machine guns in the nose and 1 center-mounted Mk108 30mm cannon. Though on some models, the 30mm cannon was changed to a 20mm one. The new DB605D engine used in this variant delivered 1,600 horsepower, making this the fastest Bf109 variant with a top speed of 441 miles an hour. Though the K models had many smaller changes, but no major redesign happened, visually these planes were quite similar to the G variants. Small clues to identify them are the fuel filler and radio hatch openings on the left side, which were both moved forward on the K models compared to the G ones. And that concludes our video. Hope you guys found it useful, and if you're interested in the more detailed history of the Bf109, check out my video covering its development. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please leave a like, subscribe to my channel, and in the comments let me know if there's any interesting events or vehicles you'd like to see.